So what's upsetting Charlie Brooker?
Yeah, this is anything I don't want to do. Now, I recognise this is quite a broad one, and it's a category that I find has expanded the older I get, basically. There's a basic rule of thumb that I think it was called Sturgeon's Law. Usually applies to film and TV and literature, that 90% of everything is rubbish and isn't worth bothering with. I don't want to... Most places aren't worth going to. Most conversations aren't worth having. Most things aren't worth eating. Most items and objects in the world aren't worth looking at or contemplating. I don't want to go to a forest or a picnic or watch your play or read a book, because it's not worth doing. And it really comes into focus at weekends. And you can't just apparently sit around in the house just staring at a phone all the time, because that's sort of bad. And the kids know this as well, because they've discovered iPads and phones, and everyone would rather be looking at those all the time, obviously. But because out of a sense of duty and guilt, you end up going to a playground or on a picnic or to a bloody museum, and most things aren't worth bothering with.
OK. Well, thanks for coming. I would say that often there are things you think you aren't going to enjoy, and then when you do them, you actually find that they're much more pleasurable than you thought. And I have to say, I've used that line a few times. What about the theory of deferred gratification? Is that you do something you don't want to do now because you'll get the reward at some point in the future. I'll give you an example. If I'm wearing a jumper,
right,
when I take it off, I always pull the sleeves out the right way again. And I think, when I come back to this jumper, set to go.
That's bleak. That is the bleakest thing I've ever heard.
Coming from Charlie Brooker, I take that as an enormous compliment.
Is that what? That's a thing that's the first place you go to when I talk about pleasure, is you think about the thing you do with the arms of your jumper.
Talking about thinking ahead to make my life sweeter at a later date. Jumper preparation.
I feel like you need a hug. Like a proper hug. But if you're only enjoying 2% of your life...
It's not that I'm not enjoying that. It's just that the rest of it isn't probably worth bothering with. It would have made no difference to my quality of life if 98% of things hadn't happened.
How do you decide on the 2%, though?
There's probably a couple of desserts I've had I've liked. Probably the birth of my children.
Good, that's a good one to
I'd probably put that
yeah.
somewhere in there.
I'll tell you what I would say. I agree with you that I don't think we should do things because other people think we should do them. I'd agree with that. I mean, take this picture of a lovely beach holiday. God, I respect that goth.
I love that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't do bikinis.
Can you imagine it? And the money she saved on suntan lotion. Fantastic. What about this painter and decorator who didn't want to move some boxes? You see what your attitude does to the world, Charlie?
That's more interesting than a plain wall, though, isn't it? That's an admirable spirit.
Well, the idea of doing what you don't want to do... We've got an example here of a dad trying to persuade his child to do something they don't want to do. And it shows with a bit of clever thought. It's amazing what you can achieve.
Vamos.
No.
Vamos caminando.
Aquí.
No, caminando.
Aquí.
¿Caminando?
Aquí.
No.
Aquí.
No.
Sí.
No.
Sí.
Sí.
No.
No, vamos.
I just think you're liable... If you don't do things you don't want to do, you're liable to not make fabulous discoveries. Like, I recently went camping, And they asked me to...
No, yeah.
Come on.
That's a bad one to pick.
That's not it. That's not my... And they asked me to build a bonfire. And I thought, oh, I really don't want to build a bonfire. I built a bonfire. I loved it. I stared at that bonfire for an hour and a half. If I had the choice between Netflix and a bonfire, I would rather have a bonfire. And I would not have discovered that if I'd adopted your attitude of, no, I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do it.
Speaking of, I've got a show on Netflix, so up yours.
Believe me, I've got several shows on the bonfire. So what's upsetting Charlie Brooker?
Having your hair cut.
Yeah.
And this is really the whole experience. The fact that it's necessary is annoying, but there's not many experiences in life in which you have to sit in a confined space with a stranger and you have to sit there and make small talk with them while staring at yourself in the mirror and having your own awkwardness amplified as you look at yourself, while sometimes drinking a cup of coffee that's getting more and more full of hair. The whole experience is I find an absolute torment. And I would be far happier if there was a night barbering service that you could book someone who would come round to your house in the dead of night and cut your hair while you were asleep, or while sedated if they did haircuts on the NHS.
What about that moment when they hold the mirror at the back of your head?
So you can watch yourself nodding obsequiously from the back. You can see what you look like as a liar from behind.
Good to know, though. I can't imagine what damage they could do that would make me say anything other than, yeah, it's lovely, thanks. That's good, it's great. I always thought if I was a barber, I'd get one of these. And a man who didn't have a bald patch suddenly... I wouldn't be able to resist. Better still, if you had a man who had a bald patch and you had that. Really build his hopes up and then go, no!
What is the purpose of the mirror? Why do you have to... Why can't I have a TV or something like that instead? Why can't I have anything? A photograph of a terrible atrocity happening would be preferable to watching myself. It should have an option in this day and age, like when you're on a plane and, like, the in-flight entertainment system nowadays, you can often, like, you can be watching a film, then you can just check that you're en route, you can sort of see a little map. So there should be an option, there should just be a button you can press that brings up the feed of your haircut in front of you, just for the few moments when that's necessary, and then you could go back to watching whatever war movie is preferable.
I agree with you there. Like, I don't know if this is just a girl thing, but I feel like you almost pay to be insulted. They sit down and they just tell you everything that's wrong with your hair, like you've got split ends and your roots need doing and your hair's dry and you need a conditioning treatment on it, and I'm like...
And they want to cut about that much off?
Yeah.
No, what are you doing? This took me ages.
And I'm like, oh, I just want this, like, split ends cut off, and then you end up coming out with, like, a bowl cut. I agree with it. It's awful. I hate going.
Yeah, I agree.
I swear this is true. I went to a barber's in Camden Town and I said to the bloke, he said, what do you want? And I said, I don't know. I said, I quite like yours. I just have it like yours. And he said, well, I have number 2 all over, right? I said, you should try wet wipes. that bit, no, don't clap that. I made that bit up. He said, I have number 2 all over. I said, well, I'll have that then. And so he got and he cut my hair, and I could see my scalp through it was so short. And I said, this is much shorter than yours. He said, oh, well, mine's grown out quite a bit. I swear that's true.
Oh, my God.
Do you always find it, you know, when they give you, like, head massages as well? I always find that awkward because I'm like, do I close my eyes or do I keep them open and look at them?
I went somewhere and they started giving me a head massage and I thought, which way is this going? I walked into the wrong bloody place. This is a bit weird. I got my head in a sink.
I don't let them wash it ever. You know that? You know that sink with the sort of that you lean back on. Feels a bit like sleeping in a urinal. Just take my word for that. And you lean back, and I was getting it done once, and it occurred. I just had this image of this woman karate chopping me across the Adam's apple.
Yeah.
And once that's crossed your mind, you cannot enjoy having your hair washed.
You're very vulnerable in those sinks. I've thought that you could just... It's like Sweeney Todd or something. It's the perfect... Oh, yeah, toughen up.